So I think this is a hard topic for me. I want to very quickly talk about singularity. And to be honest with you, a lot of people told me during my education not to open these sorts of topics because it's very hard to explain. And they often have very different ways of describing these things. You have the economic side and you have the practitioner side. And I have always been an AI practitioner, right? Even in academia, I would say that I applied AI to problems. I tried to distance myself from wider AI thinking. But I think now singularity can be defined from two different angles, and I want to very quickly talk about both of them. And motivation for this, I think, is things like that. Claude is now writing Claude, or Gemini is writing Gemini, or GPT is writing GPT. And in a very naive way, and maybe for people like me 10 years ago, that thing itself would have been constituting singularity, and I would say that, hey, we are in a moment of time that singularity exists. But I don't think that's true anymore. And I want to be a bit more clear on why I think that's not the case, and where are we, and how do we measure these things. Code generation is the part of AI which is getting close to singularity, but let me explain to you the gap between the way that people talk about this topic. I think there's philosophers and economists and sci-fi writers, and they have very interesting claims, and very, very important, by the way, the way that they look at this topic. And then there are engineers. I will start by talking about the engineering facets of this discussion, and then very quickly we'll go and maybe talk a little bit about what philosophers or economists are thinking about this. I think as engineers, at least for me, there are four categories of things that need to happen in a runaway fashion for me to tell you that we are in a singularity state. Compute, code, algorithm, and autonomous work horizon or talent hours. So these are the four important things that need to go to a level that are beyond humans' capacity, or at least in par with human, for me to talk about singularity. Compute is the one that says if AI is now able to automatically optimize itself to use compute or design better compute chips as well, I think you can say that you're in a runaway situation, meaning that you have at least from one aspect getting close to singularity. There are a lot of movements here, especially from Google, Demis Hassabis's lab, and in general, like AlphaEvolve and those kind of models. And I think we are getting somewhere there, but very unlikely that anybody would say, hey, this is like a runaway situation. We have models that now can optimize themselves, like 23% better. I think AlphaEvolve saved 1% overall Gemini's cost as well, running on inference. There are a lot of news and stories there. I think it's very interesting, but honestly, not one yet. I don't think anybody will say they're one. Algorithmically, do we have models that now can generate new algorithms to do new stuff? Very hard to see that. There are papers being published entirely by deep research and models, but not convincing, not in a runaway situation yet. I think we have a gap. Papers seems to be very good surveys of the industry, but are they new ways of doing stuff? I think not yet at least. Code is the one that I would say this is the closest to runaway. I think coding has two facets, right? Let's talk about this. 75% of Google's code is now being generated by AI. This is fantastic news. If you were telling this to me 3 years ago, I would have said, you are insane. How can you change such a giant company's culture? And where I work as well, right? Like, it's insane how quickly people are adopting, and that's very, that by itself, I can talk a video on that, right? But I think in my head, coding, and I'm trying to be very, like, I don't want to talk like fancy here, but I think coding has two facets: generation layer and decision layer. While in generation layer, I can tell you for sure we are either one, meaning human capacity, or more. On the decision layer, I'm not too convinced. I think on the decision layer, still there is a gap. Still, we are below one. Humans need to tell them what they want. And most cases, in order to get something production grade, you need to tell them what you need as well. That gap is closing. I'm not telling that forever we need humans to generate stuff, but to be honest, I'm not convinced that we are in a singularity space for the decision layer. And I think I had a video talking about work hour horizon and talent hours. I think at the moment, every couple of weeks, when a new model comes, there is something here to talk about that's very impressive. It gets doubled, but I don't think we are there, guys. I'm sorry to say that. We are not completely in a mode that we can give AI a topic to research and come back and with agentic, we can do some cool stuff. But after 2 months, we come back and we have something entirely new. But on this particular topic, things are moving and shifting very rapidly and very quickly. This is my scorecard. On coding, I would say we are close to runaway. On compute and algorithm and talent, we have work to do. On talent, I'm not too sure, but because it really depends on the topic, right? But I still think that by 2029, talent will be completely solved thing. Compute depends on how we want to run stuff, and algorithmic, we need to see. There are some other definitions which are not technical, like intelligence explosion. Can AI models build AI to do different things for different reasons? I think some elements of this happening, but I'm not sure that we are in a singularity moment on this area. Economy. Very interestingly, economy is changing around AI. You just go look at the amount of capex opex investment of a market like United States market, and you realize that this is actually much closer to one than any other definition. But can you feel it downstream everywhere? Not yet, but we are getting there. And post-human transition, I don't think that's really happening. Biological humans are no longer needed. This is something that a lot of people, Werner, a sci-fi writer, actually came up with this idea. I don't think that's happening now. I don't know how do you measure these things. You see, the problem with these definitions might be some things there, but not really clear how. I think personally, this is going to be distributed process, not an explosion. You never wake up one day and say, hey, this is singularity. I think it takes time, but we surely are getting close to it. So I am pro the idea that singularity will happen. I don't think it's a sci-fi definition. I think it's mostly an engineering singularity or a boring singularity, right? And there are a lot of counter arguments. I love the people who come with this counter argument. Jan LeCun, which is an important character in the whole AI industry, thinks that LLMs are not the way to go. I think he has important points. Please listen to him. But I also think that a lot of things that he says can be facilitated with LLM-based models. If LLM-based models can define physics models, what is happening with Google Omni or any of these models, you realize that we are getting. So that's not the showstopper that people think it is. And hype versus evidence is another argument. I'm with them to a degree. Their compute and data bottleneck much less of an issue than 2 years ago, I would say. A replication gap. A lot of the papers that are out there cannot be replicated, it seems. But anyway, that's my idea. I think we're getting there. And I don't think singularity is a sci-fi concept. I think it's an engineering measurable thing, hopefully.